Okay, so I just got out of watching The Nun 2, and this is going to be my spoiler-free review on the film after a dreadful experience of watching it last night. I made a whole video talking about the situation and talking about the rules of film etiquette and about how you have to be respectful to your fellow film goers. And I would really highly recommend everybody to please go check out that video and support that video, because I think that this is a big issue in 2023 with theaters across the globe. And this continues to happen time and time again. And I would want to bring an awareness to it. I want to see a change. I want to see a difference with that. And I think the only way that we can make a difference to it is if you guys go check out that video, share that video with your friends, really bring an awareness to what is happening around the world at the moment. Because companies at theaters, they're putting lots of money to show these ads at the beginning of movies to say do not use your cell phones, don't talk during the movie, be respectful of others. And it just goes in one ear and out the other for a lot of people, and there's a lot of people in the world that just don't listen to them, and and all that. So go check out that video if you do want to know what happened. But yeah, please support me on that, because that's something I do want to bring an awareness to. But anyways, let's get this review kicking off. So right off the gate, I want to say The Nun 2 is a more entertaining sequel than the first film. But that's not me saying that this is a good movie by any means, because there's a lot of problems that I have with this film. And I'm going to start from positives to negatives. So beginning off with what I liked in The Nun 2, the biggest positive that I can give The Nun 2 is I really enjoyed the more quieter and character moments in the film. I thought that's when the film was at its best. I thought that's when the film was the most entertaining. There's a great relationship in this film between Frenchie and this character named Sophie, who's a school student, and in their relationship throughout the film, I really liked, and I thought that made for some really highlight moments in the first act of the film. And I thought both of them gave magnificent performances, and I really bought into their relationship in this film. And then following on from that, Frenchie's character in this film is definitely a standout for me. I really liked the progression of his character, going from a horrific situation that happened in the first film, and how that kind of leans in to the sequel here. I really liked the progression of French's character, because he wants to get back on his feet. He wants to start a life for himself. He wants to start living normally. And Frenchie, he has a job as a gardener at this school, and I really like Frenchie's attitude and charisma, and his relationships with the students in the school. And as I said, they were the highlight moments of the first act to me. And about halfway throughout the film, French's character does take a more darker turn, which does add for some intense moments throughout the film. And because one thing about Frenchie as well is he was the comedic relief in the first film. And and I think his character is a lot better written in here. Like, he's more established as a character. He actually has an integral thing he offers to the story here. And so I preferred his character in the sequel much more than the first film. There's some good jump scares in the film. That is so hard to say. But there's like two scenes I can pick out that actually made me jump a little bit. One of them deals with a newspaper stand, which we've seen in all of the trailers. I thought the build up to that scene and the execution of it was amazing. That's probably one of the best jump scares I have seen, in the past couple of years. And, I really loved how that sequence, caught the audience off guard, how it plays with your expectations a bit. Like, just when you think there's going to be a jump scare, it goes another direction. And I think that's one thing that really stood out to me about that sequence. And then there's one that happens later on in the film dealing with a painting and a face that that I thought was kind of unique and creative. But that's about for where my positives end. So, just jumping off from where I left off about the jump scares in this film are very repetitive, especially in the first and the second act of this film, because I swear to God, every single scene in this movie is just building to a jump scare, ending the jump scare, and then immediately starting to set up for the next jump scare. And it's just jump scare after jump scare after jump scare. And by the midpoint of the film, I checked out. Like the jump scares in The Nun 2, it's your typical Conjuring universe bullshit. It's, it's a loud noise and that's it. That's the jump scare right there. And it's just, none of it was scary. My audience was not scared at all. There was not a peep out of them throughout this entire movie. There was not a jump, there was not a jolt. None of them was scared. That really says a lot about the jump scares in your film and how effective they are. Some of the jump scares have a good build up, but then the execution is just predictable as shit. Like, you can tell exactly when the jump scare is going to happen. You can just count it down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bzz. It's so fucking predictable. We've seen this shit a dozen times, not even in the Conjuring universe, but just in horror films in general. I thought this film may have had, a lot more to say. Because this film was marketed as an untold story, an origin story, of Valak. And I thought this film would have a lot more to say, but it's really just another movie in the Conjuring universe. It doesn't really stand out amongst the rest. It follows a very, samey trend as the rest of these movies. And then I guess, another negative I have towards this film is the so-called origin story of Valak. The film offers a one piece of information that we don't know about a character. And that's it. It's not it's not like it gives you the full origin story of her. There's bits and pieces in here of what her backstory and her, and her upbringing is, but, it doesn't really offer really anything to the movie, because there's this MacGuffin that they have to find towards the middle point of the film, and that doesn't really do much throughout the film. They just kind of fight it. They use it against, Valak a couple of times, and that's really about it. There's not really a huge, reliant on, on this MacGuffin. And, I think, that's a trend that's in every horror movie. There has to be a MacGuffin in every single movie, just to really strengthen, that runtime to make it, an hour and a half. Or in this case, this film is just under 2 hours long. Another huge positive for me, a huge negative. There we go. Jeez, I know where my brain's at the moment. But another huge negative of this film is the first act of this film. My fucking God. the first act is filled with some of the most insufferable characters, I think, in this entire universe. There's these bully characters, and even after the movie, I don't know what the point of them being in this movie was. Literally, why were they in this movie? Like, they have a lot of screen time in the first act of this film on picking on Sophie, and then, they come back in the third act of the film to be chased by a demonic goat. That's fucking it. There's no closure. There's no satisfaction off that storyline, and they are just there just to make this movie longer. There's no purpose for them in this movie, and when they are on screen, they are insufferable to watch. Like, I could not stand them. Like, the first act just has so much fat in it that could have been trimmed off. I think the first act would have been a lot better if it focused more on the character moments. But there were just so many sequences, of these girls, picking on her and all of that, and it just, it leads nowhere. It leads nowhere. There's no closure to that storyline. There's no, forgiveness at the end. It's just, they're just there. Oh yeah, and yeah, as I mentioned, there's a demonic goat in the movie. That was fucking hilarious. Like, I had a great time with the demonic goat. It was so fucking funny, in the movie. Yeah, I don't have much else to say about the goat. It's in the movie, and that's about it. Doesn't really have any purpose. Like, that whole storyline in the middle portion of the film dealing with the teacher and her students, like, what is the point of that subplot? Literally, if someone can literally just, comment in the comments on what is the purpose of that fucking subplot. Like, there's a demonic goat chasing them around this school. That's it. And while that's happening, we have, our main characters, on this mission, to try and defeat Valak. And it's just, those stories, like, it's just, it doesn't make fucking sense to me. Like, fuck me. One positive I did forget to mention, however, was Valak. There is a lot more Valak in this movie than there was in the first movie, and all of the sequences that, dealt with Valak, I really liked. The film opens really, really strong. It has a great introduction kill. It really sets the tone very well for what this film could have been. But then, from that opening sequence, we get into the first act, and it slows down to a halt. Like, this film probably takes about an hour to get going. Like, nothing happens for an hour. If you can, find this film on streaming one day after its theatrical release and just cut to about the hour mark, I think you are in for a fun movie, because that's when it more kicks into gear at the movie you are there to see. But, and this is directed by Michael Chaves, who, he isn't, a newcomer to the Conjuring universe. He did, The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, and he did The Curse of La Llorona. So he's very much familiar with this universe, and none of his movies I've really liked, and on top of that as well, this film also has a lot of the same problems I had with the First Nun, which was the First Nun. It is dark. It is dark to the point where you can't see shit, and this film, it is so dark to the point where you can't see shit. I don't know if they just had minimal lights. I don't know if they just didn't have the budget. I don't know if a light broke on set. I don't know what happened, but there was a lot of sequences where I had to wince at the screen to actually see what the fuck was going on. Let's see, what else is there to say? The kills in the film are pretty forgettable. Yeah, there's it's a lot of the cutaway kills. Right before the money shot, it cuts away to something else, and yeah, there's a lot of kills in here that are like that. Uh, the ending of the film is really cool. It has a really kick-ass third act. The third act I thought was the second best part of this movie. And yeah, there is some more characterization, on our nuns from the first film. Which I enjoyed those moments, but once again, they don't really do anything for the movie. Like, there's this whole storyline with her, with her mother and all that, which I believe, yeah, like her mother was taken away or something, and that kind of, sort of, not really comes back in to the third act of the film, kind of, sort of, because, there was this whole, rule of, like, in their family, growing up, of, like, the boys must go, must go to the army, and the girls must go pray to God and all that. And it's something that's mentioned, quite a bit in the first act, but once again, it doesn't do much for the movie. And another problem that stood out to me in this film was the rules that are set up in this film. It's established very early on that the nun can become, anything. It can take possession of anything that it would like, just as long as it has something to do with something that you are scared of. So keep that in mind now. And now, cutting to the whole demonic goat thing, it was never established in the film if any of these characters were scared of this goat. Like, I understand you would be fucking petrified if that goat is running after you, sure. But out of all the creatures you could have chosen, why was it a goat? Is one of these characters scared of a goat? And just the film doesn't even answer a basic question like that, which I feel like it should. People might say I'm being too harsh. I don't think I am. Like, that's the rules that are established literally in the opening sequence of the film. And they quickly turn on it towards the end of the film. And there's a kind of love story in the film between Frenchie and this teacher, and I thought that storyline was going to go somewhere, but there is no closure to that storyline, because there's like a dancing moment, which that was another standout scene for me, because that was a scene that was it was quite it was establishing the characters there. So I love that moment. But yeah, that storyline never really came into play like you think. It might turn out as like hero gets last kiss type of thing, something very cliche like that. But no, that doesn't lead anywhere. And there's some cool visual cues in the film. The film doesn't have a whole lot of color. It is a very dark and grainy and dull looking film, just like the first film. But there are some visual cues. There's one that takes place in this chapel that helps them find this MacGuffin, and I thought that was pretty cool. There's a little bit more scenery to see in this film, like the whole set, which from what I've actually read up on, they actually filmed at an actual abandoned church. So that was pretty cool, because I think that really added a lot to the to the production value, and just like the very almost claustrophobic type feeling that it has. So I guess that I appreciated here. I can't really give props to the set design, because really everything is as what it is. So I'm sure there might have been a few things added in the background every now and then, but yeah. And there's an homage in this film to The Omen, with this kid, and that was pretty cool. Once again, it led to a jump scare. No fucking surprise. But anyways, you know, yeah, they're my thoughts. Like, at the end of the day, this is a fun enough movie to watch. I would say just wait for this movie to come on VOD to watch it, because yeah, there's really nothing you're missing out on. Like, you're paying like a $27 ticket to go see this movie, and yeah, it's not the type of movie that, you know, that I would at least personally give my cash. This film has had a lot of you know, positive reviews as well. So, you know, yeah, take that as what you will. But yeah, they're just my first reactions coming out of The Nun. Anyways, guys, I have another video to make, so I'll talk to you soon.